Sav, hey, congratulations on your documentary, Chasing Amy.
Thank you so much, Gig. I really appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem. I sorry I missed you for Tribeca, but got you for just right in time for Outfest and right before San Diego Comic-Con.
It's wild, right? I mean, those are two pretty incredible things to get to be a part of. I feel very lucky today.
I know. As a filmmaker, just to get into Tribeca is one thing, but you got into Outfest and you even have a panel at San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, how does this feel for yourself?
It's pretty surreal. We spent as a team like 4.5 years heads down, just really focusing on the movie. And so to be able to play at a place like Tribeca, which is a dream come true, literally, to be able to come back to Outfest, my old stomping grounds, and to be able to be closing night at a place like that, and a place that supported me so much throughout my career, as well as many of my colleagues on the team. And then to get to go back to Comic Con like with a panel, I haven't been back since 2011. So to the idea of getting to do that is just pretty unreal.
That is nuts. That's crazy. But we have to hear it from you is what originated this documentary for yourself, Chasing Amy?
Oh my gosh, where to even begin? I mean, it all really started with seeing Chasing Amy at age 12 as a closeted queer kid in suburban Kansas, and not having much outside access to queer films. I kind of accidentally saw it because I was in a Ben Affleck phase where I was just like going through all of his filmography and hosting a year-long, film festival in my living room, right? And what I found was so much more than I could have ever expected. I found a movie that gave me a path forward in terms of a career. It was a movie that gave me a path forward in terms of what I could imagine my future to be in so many ways. And I also just thought it was a wonderfully written script that just resonated with me deeply as a person who wanted to have that kind of romantic love. And as time went on, my life continued to have these parallels to Chasing Amy, and kind of accidentally made for Chasing Amy to be what it is now.
Now, of course, we have. If you watch the film, we understand why you love Chasing Amy. But for those people who haven't watched the film, I don't want to say it's like an obsession, but you are truly a fan of the film. And I even
Yeah.
saw it back in the '90s, but somehow it really resonated with you.
Yeah, I mean, like it was a literal life raft for me as a kid. I mean, not literal in that I was clinging onto an actual life raft, but it was no joke, like a sincere thing that was needed for me as a 12-year-old, because I was having a really hard time not knowing who I was. Other people figured out I was queer before I knew. And so being othered in that way, I needed something that made me feel like, it was going to be okay the next day, right? And being able to see the possibilities that existed outside of Olathe, Kansas was invaluable for me as a kid. And so, yeah, I have a very deep love and fandom with Chasing Amy, and it's a borderline, whether it's an obsession or not. It's not like it's all I thought about and talked about, but talked about it enough that people were like, you talk about this movie a lot. And so it's a sincere love of fandom, and of this movie that gave me a path forward to go out and create my own films. And I'm truly forever grateful to everybody who made Chasing Amy for that, because it'll never change what my life was able to become because I had this movie to watch.
Now, when you started this documentary, what did you think this documentary was going to be about? Because when I watch it, it almost seems like you are learning as you're going through the production.
100%. I mean, really, what I thought the movie was going to be about at the beginning was that it was going to be a pretty straightforward documentary, kind of about the cross section of the LGBTQ community and Chasing Amy. And it was going to be like a third party, objective perspective of like, well, here are the facts, here are all of these different truths that exist at once. And as time went on, the movie evolved as the story did, right? I mean, as a storyteller, you're going to have to listen to what the story is telling you, and what everybody around me, the brilliant producers that worked on this and my collaborators at every level were like, hey, we're here because of your story with Chasing Amy. We think that this is the most compelling part of the movie. And at a certain point, you just have to listen. I was always going to make whatever version of the movie needed to be made. And as much as I did not want to be in the movie, I was in the movie. And that's kind of what it ended up being. And it ended up being my story and evolving from that initial place of discovery.
Now, how comfortable were you being in this movie, and how much of a you yourself battling through this entire process?
Yeah, I mean, I did not want to be in it at all. I'll be totally real with you. But I had seen other documentaries where a documentarian being on camera enough to support the emotional aspect of the movie was enough. And so, pretty quickly I could see that it's like, okay, well, I'll be in it for like 10 minutes, maybe tops, right, out of like our 90-minute runtime. And then again, it just continues to evolve because you have to listen to what the story is telling you. And so I'm really thankful for all the people that made it easier to work through, because it wasn't easy to be on camera and to be able to watch cuts of seeing myself make mistakes and to come of age. It's a lot easier to watch a coming of age story when it's not your coming of age story.
Now, of course, this is technically your story, and I do want to say that it is very difficult because one of the things that you addressed is transitioning, and because of the political climate today, that's a very difficult subject to talk about. But I'm sure you were approached to this subject a while back.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we handle my transition in the movie is exactly the way that I wanted it, which was to be able to say to the audience, hey, this is my name, these are my pronouns, this is how to refer to me, and the rest is my business. And, it was very intentional, but it also came from a place of discovery because, over the last 100 years of cinema, as Disclosure so eloquently showcased, we have been told as trans people how to feel about ourselves through messaging in movies, which is why I'm so passionate about making sure that trans people have opportunities to tell their stories, right? And for me to be able to tell my stories. Now, this is quite literally my story, but like what I wanted initially was to figure out how much do I actually need to disclose about my private medical history for it to make sense in this movie. And, my colleague, Alex Schmitter, who's a producer on the movie, his day job is working as the director of transgender representation at GLAAD, so he's used to consulting with a number of filmmakers, trans, cis, whatever, right? And he basically like gently pushed back and he was like, Sav, why do you think that you have to do this? Why do you think you have to have this shot in the movie? Why do you think you have to disclose all of these private things about you? And it was really a moment where I was able to utilize my own imagination for what my dream scenario would be, which is what we have in the movie, which is we acknowledge it and we show that it's an important part of me coming of age, but it's not the story, and it's germane to the plot only in that you need to know how to refer to me moving forward. And it's part of me coming of age, but it's not the whole story. And so I'm really grateful for that collaboration with, Alex and the whole team on that, but also to just be able to showcase for other people, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to immediately feed into the narratives that you've been prescribed for how to feel about yourself.
So was it difficult to approach your own wife to be a part of this story?
No, I mean, she's been with me every step of the way, whether she was on camera or off, and she's just down for anything. So you see it in the movie. I'm the luckiest dude in the world. But even if I hadn't asked her to be in it, she might have bullied me to be a part of it anyway.
Well, then let's talk about all the people you brought on to Chasing Amy, because being a film buff, we have to assume that you're going to go after a lot of these actors, these writers, producers, and everybody else. Was it difficult to track everyone down and convince them to be part of this?
Oh gosh, at the beginning of the process, I didn't know anybody involved in Chasing Amy. I truly was a recent film school grad from Kansas who had no connections to LA or New York, basically. Like anybody I knew who lived there, I had met at like a regional film festival, right? And so I was trying to figure out, it's like, okay, well, how do I get in touch with these people? It's like, well, their reps' contact info is on IMDb Pro. I guess I could try that. And then kind of what accidentally happened was that along the way, so many people advocated for me to have a chance to interview these folks. So Guinevere and Joey were the two of the first interviews that we were able to confirm in the process because other people vouched for me, people who I had met at regional film festivals and, you know, from my time in Lawrence, Kansas. Like there were so many people that went out of their way to give us introductions. But how we got Kevin, though, was that I had given a TED talk, right? And kind of all by accident. I had applied for this program called the TED Residency, applied the last day that you could apply, accidentally applied for one of the only paid spots in the TED Residency program because it was a partnership through Adobe. I attached my director's reel. I attached a very vague idea for a TED talk that was just going to be about LGBTQ media representation. I attached a still from the last short film I directed, and I filmed a 1 minute video saying, "Hey, I'm Sav. I am from Kansas. I'd love to give a TED talk. Let me know." To my surprise, they called me back. They scheduled me for a finalist interview, and we just vibed for like 30 minutes. To this day, it's one of my favorite experiences I've ever had, is just talking with Cindy Stivers, Jordan Writing, Katrina, Conan, and Reel, just chatting about, you know, Chasing Amy and all of the things. But they were like, well, we really like you, but you don't really have an idea for a TED talk. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And they were like, so what would you give a TED talk tomorrow about if you had to? And I said, well, I've got this idea for a documentary on Chasing Amy. And I had really just like started the process of discovery with it at that point. And they were like, that is the most narrow, specific idea for a TED talk we've ever heard. We're in. 3 days later, I found out that I got it. I moved to New York. Adobe, you know, paid for me to live in New York. And I spent the first 3 months of that program just doing pre-production for Chasing Amy. Fast forward 6 months after I gave the TED talk, we've shot the first 2 days of footage only in New York and New Jersey. The TED talk goes online. Enough people send it to Kevin within an hour of it being online that he immediately responds and says that he's in. And for that, for all of the community that was built and Kevin's generous response, I'll forever be grateful.
I mean, I do have to admit, I met Kevin once myself, and it was astonishing because I was a big fan of Clerks, myself, and so you know, decades later to meet him for the first time, I can't imagine for you to meet him for the first time, and to have a long conversation and be at his place. That must be an astonishing experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, you see it in the movie. Like, I'm so happy. Like when I hug Kevin, that is the first time I'm ever meeting the dude. We had been texting a little bit, and we had like one phone conversation before that, but that's the first time I'm meeting Kevin, is in his house. Um, it was it was truly generous of him to give us all that time, you know, and to be as kind to me as he's been. It has meant everything to me as a filmmaker and as a person, for the guy that made you want to make movies to give you that much time when he's that busy. It means a lot. And so I'm forever grateful to Kevin for that.
Well, then we're going to be thankful that you have a reunion with him next week, and that's going to be terrific, not only for the fans of this documentary, but also the fans of Kevin Smith. And it's going to be one hilarious panel, and for certain.
From your lips to Kevin's ears, he's the one moderating it, and it just clicked when you said it that it's next week. So wish me luck.
Now, of course, one of the things that it's always been addressed over years and decades about Chasing Amy is a controversy, and you have the unpopular opinion of Chasing Amy, of liking the film from the LGBTQ community. Now, when you're making this movie and you started to hear other people's opinions, did that change your mind about the film?
I don't think anything can change what Chasing Amy has meant to me. You know, I I have the ability to see the nuance in the situation of, well, this movie is a movie that literally saved my life. And there are valid critiques of it. There are valid critiques of most movies that I see out there. You know, the idea of a movie being perfect is largely not real, right? I mean, movies can be perfect to us as subjective viewers. So for me, like Chasing Amy will always mean so much to me, regardless of any critiques or anything else that happens in culture as we continue to progress and tell authentic queer stories made by queer people. Or even, another straight cis guy makes a wonderful LGBTQ film that we all fall in love with, right? Like as time goes on, we can see the progression. When I look at Chasing Amy, I see a film that's very important to me, but I also see all the progress that's been made since then of the stories that have been able to be told and to be able to be funded, and all of the work that's come since then. And so, I'll always love Chasing Amy. And I can see how it can be hurtful to people. And I can also see how it's wonderful. I still think of it a bit as like a Rorschach test of whatever you're looking to get out of Chasing Amy, you can find in there. And I think that's a credit to Kevin's wonderful writing that, so many people can take away all of these different things when they watch the movie that, that whether or not I agree with it. And obviously what I care about most though, is that people can see Chasing Amy and acknowledge those multitudes of truths that can all exist at the same time, and we'll all be okay. It is just a movie at the end of the day, however important movies are to us.
It sounds like you're saying that it opened certain doors, and wherever that door leads, it is a path.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it opened doors, but also Go Fish opened a lot of doors. There are so many films that came out during that time, specifically in the new queer cinema movement, that opened so many doors for people. And so, for other people, it's not Chasing Amy that's like their hallmark, the hallmark of their lives, the movie that made them want to do stuff. I hear so many times how many people loved Clerks and they wanted to get into entertainment after they saw Clerks. We all have those movies that are so special to us. And for me, it did quite literally open a door to be able to become a filmmaker, because I knew for the first time being a filmmaker was a thing. And so, again, regardless of how it continues to age or whatever, like I still think that the way it depicts the fluidity of sexuality is pretty wonderful. In the way that there's kind of like a no apologies, attitude to Alyssa Jones's character, but also like not everybody has to agree with me, and that's totally fine.
And for you specifically, what during this entire production, what was the newest thing or what you've learned during this production?
Feel like I've learned so much. Honestly, like, you look at the whole journey of making the movie, you see it from beginning to end, right? I mean, I feel like I learned, it's okay to let go a little bit. I think I learned that it's, life goes on, and it probably isn't good for me to be trapped in a state of arrested development, holding the same movie in the same regard as close as I did when I was 12. It's okay that there are new things in my life that give it greater meaning, the meaning that I was always looking for and trying to find in Chasing Amy. And I've also learned that people are just people. They're complicated. Things are hard. And not everything, most things are not just one way or another way. It's mostly a lot of gray area in the middle where we find life and humanity.
Most excellent. Well, Sab, I've taken a lot of your time already, but can you tell us what's after Chasing Amy? I mean, you already caught it.
I did catch it, didn't I? Yeah, what's next? Well, one, we're going to continue connecting with audiences who come out to see Chasing Amy. So regardless of where it's at, I'd love to see people at your local film festival and to be able to connect about it. What's next is making more movies. So I've got some narrative stuff that I want to get done, that after the writer strike is over. There's a movie in particular I want to make called Pancake Skank that I think will be something totally different, totally fun, and I'm excited for people to see it. There's some other stuff in development that, too much to talk about. And then lastly, just continuing my work at the Transgender Film Center, connecting, trans made films with audiences around the world.
Most excellent. And one more thing. I know I keep on saying one more thing, but one last thing. Audiences will have a chance to watch your film at more film festivals. Hopefully you get a wide release for Chasing Amy. What is the one most important take you hope that they would walk away with after watching your documentary?
Oh, it's so hard because there's so many things happening in it all at once, right? I hope that people can be kinder to themselves. I hope that people can be kinder to each other and recognize the nuance in life. That's what I hope. And I also hope that people will be kind to LGBTQ people, especially trans people right now, with all of the bad things happening to our community, not just here in the United States, but across the world. If I'm the first trans person, it feels like, as a result of this movie, and it makes you recognize that we're human. I love that. There's so many of us, that are just living our lives and being super boring. And I hope that this can be a good gateway to kindness and empathy, because I think we genuinely need more of it in this world.
Absolutely, well said. Because I had to chase down this interview myself, because your film was very inspirational. I have to admit, it's very brave for you to come out and tell your stories, particularly with the transitioning. So thank you for talking to us about it.
Oh my God, Gig, thank you so much for your time. Your time is super valuable, and I appreciate you spending any of it with me.
Most excellent. And hopefully I get to see and laugh with you guys at San Diego Comic-Con. I'm going to try to crash that panel if I could.
Come to the panel. We're ready for you.
Most excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Sav. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gig. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.